is under investigation for rebellion. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and South Korean Defense Minister have held annual security talks in Seoul. Hegseth has stated that the core of alliance of South Korea is protecting against North Korea. China has dismissed Taiwan's safety concerns over the 2026 APEC Leaders Summit in Shenzhen, insisting it will ensure all participants' security under APEC rules and One China principle. Kim Young-nam, North Korea's former ceremonial head of state and longtime diplomat who served under 3 generations of the Kim family, has died at the age of 97, according to local state media reports. Reports also suggest that the leader Kim Jong-un paid his respects in person, honoring the veteran statesman. Typhoon Kalmaegi has hit central Philippines. At least 2 people have been killed so far, as per reports. Meanwhile, torrential rains, strong winds, and storm surges have forced tens of thousands to evacuate from their homes. Now we start with Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced that Ukraine will open 2 arms export offices this year to sell surplus military equipment. The first offices will open in Berlin and Copenhagen. According to reports, former Strategic Industries Minister Alexander Kamyshin will oversee European exports, while National Security and Defense Council Secretary and former Defense Minister Rustom Umerov are going to explore markets in the Middle East and Asia. Zelensky also noted that on August 19, he and U.S. President Donald Trump have agreed that once Ukraine's arms exports begin, the United States will purchase Ukrainian drones. According to reports, the Ukrainian delegation was in Washington to negotiate a drone agreement, under which Kyiv would transfer combat-tested drone technology in exchange for royalties or other compensation. Let's listen into what President Zelensky has said.
Ми відкриваємо 2 експортні столиці. Ви знаєте, що це co-production і експорт, про який ми говорили, тієї зброї, яку ми можемо дозволити собі продавати, щоб мати додаткові гроші на наше внутрішнє виробництво дефіцитних речей, на які нам не вистачає грошей. Перші 2 столиці – це вирішено на рівні компаній, які будуть в co-production, а також на рівні держав. Перші 2 столиці – це наших представництва там будуть, це Берлін і Копенгаген. Працювати в морських дронах, у нас їх більше, ніж ми застосовуємо. Наші ВМС застосовують або Служба безпеки, або ССО, або ГУР, хто застосовує морські дрони по-різному. Там є точно у нас в 2 рази більше, ніж ми застосовуємо. Це правда.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from St. Petersburg. Thank you very much, Gilbert, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how might Ukraine's new arms export offices in Europe affect the balance of military power in the region? And what does it signify as Ukraine urges other nations to continue supporting Ukraine with funds and military supplies while it opens such offices?
Well, the basic logic of Mr. Zelensky's offer to sell advanced drones to Europe and to the United States is reasonable. After all, Ukraine has been in constant battle with the Russians in a drone warfare that's more than a year long in intense drone operations. So the consequence is that the Ukrainians have adapted drones, have developed drones that are considerably more useful on the battlefield than anything that Europe has. If Europeans are supplying drones to Ukraine, it is with they do have to modify them as the rules of engagement of drone warfare change from week to week. They're still lagging behind what the Ukrainians are able to do by introducing modifications directly from the days or weeks' results. However, there is an air of unreality about this entire proposal, given that the construction of opening of any factory producing drones in quantity sufficient to justify export will be flattened by Russian missile attack. Mr. Zelensky and his Western partners are ignoring the reality that Russia can strike and destroy any building, any facility in the whole of Ukraine at its choosing.
And as you mentioned that Ukraine is ahead in arms technology, how far ahead do you think Ukraine is compared to other allies in Europe? And also, how long do you think would it take for other countries to catch up to Ukraine's technology and what it has advanced through this war with Russia?
Well, you cannot catch up to the latest technology if you are not an active participant in the war. And this underlines the fallacy of the whole EU approach from von der Leyen to building a line of drone protection for Europe. It's utter nonsense. The idea that you can stockpile drones that will have some use 2 or 3 weeks from now shows that you don't understand what drone warfare is all about. The only people who can produce weekly and monthly updated drones to suit the latest stage of battle are those who engaged in the battle. And the Europeans are onlookers. They are unable necessarily to follow things, nor do they seem to understand, at least at the highest levels of political decision-making, like von der Leyen and the European Commission. They absolutely do not understand what this drone warfare is all about.
And could U.S. purchases of Ukrainian drones escalate tensions further between Russia and Ukraine, and Russia and states as well?
There will be no purchase of Ukrainian drones because there will be no Ukrainian drones for export. As I said, if the Ukraine is now producing perhaps 30% of its daily, weekly drone requirements to maintain the battle against Russia. The rest is probably imported from various sources. However, it is unreasonable to say that the drone production in Ukraine is being done in small quantities, hidden in underground warehouses and so forth, to avoid detection by Russian intelligence and immediate destruction. Nonetheless, we hear several times a week that the Russians have destroyed this or that facility in Ukraine producing drones or parts for drones, because to avoid catastrophe, they divide up the work for components going into drones to various locations. Nonetheless, the Russians are hitting these stockpiles of parts and also completed drones. The idea that Ukraine will be able to have a self-standing factory producing drones for export is just a pipe dream. It is something that Mr. Zelensky can sell to his talking partners in Europe, who seem to understand nothing whatever about drone warfare, and that he can sell to Mr. Trump, who would like to pretend that there will be something of consequence coming out of Ukraine to pay back the enormous debt the country has to the United States.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay on this topic. Russia's defense ministry has reported that Ukraine's armed forces lost roughly 225 troops in Dmitrov in the Donetsk People's Republic over the past day. The ministry has also stated that the battle group center liberated 24 buildings in the town as it expanded its control of the area. According to Russia's top brass, Ukrainian forces have sustained about 1,485 casualties in the special military operation zone over the past day. The enemy lost more than 240 troops in the zone of responsibility of the battle group north and over 230 servicemen in the area controlled by the battle group west, according to them. The battle groups South and Center inflicted roughly 200 and more than 490 casualties, respectively. Ukraine has also lost more than 255 soldiers in the zone of responsibility of the Battle Group East and over 70 troops in the zone of responsibility of the Battle Group Dnieper. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that up to 300 Russian troops remain in Pokrovsk. Oleg Kiper, the governor of Odesa, has stated that Russia struck civilian energy and port infrastructure in a massive attack on Ukraine's Odesa region overnight. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from St. Petersburg. Thank you very much, Gilbert, for staying with us. Now, looking at all these reports come in and assuming that they are exactly what the ground or front lines are right now, the reality right now, what is your analysis do you think this war is heading towards the end, or do you think this is escalating, and who is winning or taking ahead in the front lines?
Well, I understand that there'll be a lot of confusion in the minds of viewers of this program because there are contradictory claims coming from Russia and from Ukraine. But regarding casualties, regarding the status of the encirclement of the important defense city of Pokrovsk, as it's known in Ukrainian. These numbers are contested, but I will say systematically, the Ukrainians vastly inflate the figures they give for Russian casualties. They bear no resemblance whatever to reality. The Russians, I believe, are more sober. However, let's put aside the question of how many people were killed. The Russian claims of 1,500 Ukrainian soldiers killed in the last 24 hours is consistent with their general reporting over the past several weeks of their achievements on the battlefield. And so I would tend to accept it. But what we see is anything but what some people and some highly ranked military officers in the West are claiming, that the war is a stalemate, that they should enter into negotiations because it is stalled. That's utter rubbish. The war is anything but a stalemate. The Ukrainians are being battered. And the large issue of the last day or two has been the attempt by the Ukrainians, first through an emergency helicopter sent with top skilled military officers to retrieve and take out of the surrounded city of Pokrovsk foreign troops or foreign officers, one may imagine, including, you can be sure, NATO officers, who are now trapped with the rest of the Ukrainian forces in the encircled city of Pokrovsk. The Russians destroyed the helicopter, killed the troops sent for the purpose of relieving or removing high-ranking Western officers. The Ukrainians have also made repeated attempts in the last 24 hours to attack one or another point of the encirclement and thereby to open a path for escape for their trapped colleagues, who number perhaps 5,000 people in the city of Pokrovsk. They were all pushed, listening to Russian reports. These were all repelled with heavy losses by the Ukrainians. The fact that 1,500 dead or wounded has been issued by the Russians is reasonable given the nature of the fighting of the last 24 hours, which was, as I said, desperate attempts by the Ukrainians to attack Russian forces encircling Pokrovsk. And by the natural order of things in military practice, the attacking side suffers much heavier casualties than the defending side. So let's assume 1,500 Ukrainians died or were severely injured.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Gilbert Doctorow for joining us and sharing that insight as a Russian affairs expert. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Central America.